My grandfather called me at 7:12 on a Monday morning. His voice was calm, which was how I knew something was wrong. "Megan," he said, "how many cars does a man need before the HOA can take his house?" I thought he was joking. Then he read the letter aloud. Final notice of Lien. The HOA claimed he owed $12,486 for 17 parking violations, late fees, administrative charges, and legal referrals. I drove to his house immediately. Thomas Reed sat at the dining table, with 17 notices spread in front of him. Each one showed a different vehicle: a pickup, a delivery van, a white SUV, a landscaping truck, a nurse's car. He slid his old driver's license surrender receipt toward me. He had given up driving 6 years earlier because of macular degeneration. He did not own a car. He did not have a license. He rarely even crossed the neighborhood without using the bus. I told them that, he said. They said the vehicles were associated with my property. How? They were parked nearby. I picked up the first notice. The white SUV's plate was clearly visible. I ran the registration through a public data contact at work. The owner was Ashley Collins, the HOA president's daughter. The second notice placed another vehicle outside my grandfather's house at 2:14 p.m. On a day hospital records showed he was 10 miles away receiving eye treatment. I looked at the 17 photographs. This isn't a mistake. My grandfather folded his hands. What is it then? I pointed to the lien notice. It's a system that thinks your house can pay even when you did nothing. My grandfather had taught history for 34 years. He believed facts mattered. Dates mattered. Records mattered. He also believed institutions usually corrected themselves when shown clear evidence. That faith was about to cost him his home. His eyesight began failing 7 years earlier. At first, he stopped driving at night. Then he avoided unfamiliar roads. Finally, after nearly missing a child in a crosswalk, he surrendered his license voluntarily. It was the hardest responsible thing I ever did, he told me. He sold his sedan and kept the keys in a small wooden box beside a photograph of my grandmother Anne. She had driven during the final years of her life. After cancer took her, the house became his last stable place. He still kept her garden alive. Her chair remained near the living room window. Her handwritten recipes were taped inside a cabinet door. Without a car, he built his life around the bus schedule. He walked to the library. He used a grocery delivery service. I drove him to medical appointments. His world had become smaller, but he still lived independently. That independence mattered to him. Giving up the keys was hard, he said. Being fined for driving after that feels like someone erased the choice I made to keep other people safe. The HOA did not see sacrifice. It saw an address, a property, a paid-off house with equity. Thomas believed the parking tickets would disappear once someone understood he had no vehicle. Instead, every appeal triggered another fee. The system had not failed to understand him. It had decided understanding him was less profitable than charging him. The first ticket arrived 9 months earlier. It showed a blue pickup parked near the community mailbox. The fine was $75. My grandfather called Kevin Marsh, the property manager. "I don't own that truck," Thomas said. Kevin replied, "The camera associated it with your property." "How does a camera associate a truck with a house?" "It uses geofencing." "What does that mean?" "It means the vehicle was detected near your residence." "That does not make it mine." Kevin told him to identify the actual owner. Thomas explained that he had never seen the truck. Kevin said the appeal lacked sufficient evidence. The second ticket involved a grocery delivery van. The driver had stopped for less than 3 minutes. The third showed a home health nurse visiting a neighbor. The fourth was a cable repair vehicle. Every appeal received the same answer: insufficient evidence to overturn violation. Thomas called again. "Do human beings read these appeals?" Kevin said the process was automated for consistency. Consistent with what? Community parking standards. By the 10th ticket, Thomas stopped calling. He began writing letters. He attached proof that he had no driver's license and no registered vehicle. The HOA returned one envelope unopened because it had been sent to the incorrect department. Another letter received no response. A third appeal was denied 38 seconds after online submission. The system did not review evidence. It processed resistance. One photograph did not even show his house. Only a vehicle, a curb, and a GPS label. That label was treated as stronger evidence than the fact that Thomas Reed did not own a car. The HOA had transformed proximity into guilt. And because he was elderly and alone, they assumed he would eventually pay. Each ticket started at $75. Then came a $50 administrative fee, a late charge, a review fee, a collection fee, a legal referral fee. One ticket reached more than $700 before my grandfather understood what had happened. He paid the first one out of fear. The HOA deposited his check but applied it to processing charges. The original fine remained open. That allowed new late fees to continue. He paid another $200 the following month. Again, the principal balance barely changed. The money did not close the case. It fed the machine around it. Thomas began hiding the notices in a desk drawer. He was ashamed. He had taught generations of students about civic responsibility, and now official letters accused him of repeated violations. He did not want neighbors to think he was reckless or dishonest. He did not want me to worry. By the time I found the full account history, the balance had passed $12,000. The final letter gave him 30 days before the HOA recorded a lien. He had considered withdrawing retirement savings. "I can replace money," he said. "I cannot replace this house." "You should not have to buy your own house back from a parking algorithm." His eyes moved across the 17 notices. "I thought if I paid one or two, they would see I was trying to cooperate. They saw cooperation as proof you would keep paying. That was the social injustice at the center of the scheme. The system was hardest on people least able to fight it. Retired residents, people with disabilities, those living alone. The HOA did not need them to be guilty. It only needed them to be tired. I created a spreadsheet. Ticket number, plate, vehicle color, timestamp, camera location, GPS point, fee total, appeal result. Then I started identifying the actual owners. Officer Elena Ruiz, a local traffic officer and former student of my grandfather, agreed to help verify registrations through legal channels. The first 7 results came back quickly. None belonged to Thomas. The white SUV belonged to Ashley Collins, daughter of HOA President Brenda Collins. A landscaping truck belonged to Greenstone Services, the HOA's own contractor. A silver sedan belonged to a visiting nurse. A van belonged to a cable company. A pickup belonged to a resident 2 streets away. 3 different vehicles were registered to workers renovating the clubhouse. By the end, 17 tickets represented 14 different owners. Not one vehicle belonged to my grandfather. 3 vehicles had been ticketed multiple times. All those tickets were assigned to his account. I printed the plate list and drove to the HOA office. Kevin met me behind a glass reception window. "This evidence proves the vehicles are not his." He barely looked at it. "Homeowners are responsible for guests and vehicles associated with their address. Those people were not his guests. That is what the appeal process is for." The appeal process denied him automatically. Kevin folded his arms. Then the evidence was insufficient. The registration records are insufficient? The system applies standards consistently. I leaned closer to the window. No, it assigns blame to the nearest house. He lowered his voice. "You should advise your grandfather to enter a payment plan before legal fees increase." That was when I understood. Kevin did not want the truth. He wanted the clock to keep running. Harold Kim lived across the street from Thomas. His doorbell camera covered most of the curb. When I asked about the vehicles, he nodded immediately. "I paid a wrong ticket last year," he said. It was easier than arguing. That sentence explained why the system survived. Wrongful charges did not need to be perfect. They only needed to be exhausting. Harold gave me months of footage. The first video showed the white SUV parked in Brenda's driveway, not near my grandfather's home. The HOA image cropped out the driveway entrance. The GPS point was off by more than 30 meters. Another vehicle had stopped on the opposite side of the street for 2 minutes. A landscaping truck parked beside the clubhouse entrance. The HOA camera angle made it appear aligned with Thomas's lot. The most absurd ticket showed a contractor van entirely inside another resident's driveway. Yet the software assigned it to the nearest numbered property. Thomas's house. I compared timestamps. Every ticket was generated within 8 seconds of the plate scan. Every appeal was denied in under 1 minute. No human had reviewed the location. No one had checked ownership. The system saw a vehicle, estimated a coordinate, selected the nearest address, and created debt. Then I found something worse. One ticket was issued while the actual vehicle was parked at Brenda's home. Her daughter's SUV remained there for nearly 3 hours. Thomas received a $740 charge. Brenda's family received nothing. When I showed my grandfather the video, he shook his head. So the camera can see the car, but not whose driveway it is in. It can. Then why did they bill me? Because the software was not designed to find responsibility. I looked at the lien letter. It was designed to find an account. The HOA used a company called Park Secure Solutions. Its marketing promised automated plate recognition, instant violation generation, and revenue optimization. That last phrase mattered. Park Secure did not identify vehicle owners. It captured plates and estimated location. Then it assigned the vehicle to the closest property number. The system called this proximity attribution. I obtained the contract through a formal records request. Buried in the technical appendix was a warning. Property attribution is proximity-based and should not be treated as proof of ownership or resident responsibility. Human review is recommended. Kevin had received the same warning in an email from Park Secure's support team. The email listed repeated concerns. GPS drift, incorrect address assignment, vehicles captured across the street, contractor vehicles linked to residents, guest vehicles assigned without verification. Kevin replied, "Proceed with automated attribution. Residents can dispute if necessary." He had knowingly removed human review. Why? Because manual review cost money and reduced ticket volume. Automatic mode generated more violations. More violations generated more fees. When I confronted Kevin again, he looked irritated rather than ashamed. The disclaimer protects the vendor. It warns you not to use the data as proof. The board approved the process. You used guesses to threaten an elderly man's house. Your grandfather had appeal opportunities. Automated denials are not appeals. He stepped closer. Be careful, Ms. Reed. Accusing the association of fraud could expose you to legal consequences. It was a familiar tactic. Turn the person asking questions into the threat. Use professional language to make injustice sound procedural. But Kevin's warning had arrived too late. The vendor email was now evidence. The system did not make an innocent mistake. Management knew it could not prove ownership. They used it anyway. The financial records explained why. Park Secure received a processing fee for every ticket issued. Kevin's management company received a collection incentive based on total revenue. The HOA received enforcement credits when monthly ticket volume exceeded a target. A legal vendor collected referral fees when unpaid tickets advanced toward liens. Every stage profited from escalation. No one was paid to correct mistakes. The board's budget emails revealed another motive. Brenda was running for another term as HOA president. Raising dues would have angered residents. Parking fines allowed her to cover a budget shortfall without announcing an increase. One email read, "Strong parking enforcement lets us avoid raising dues before the election." Kevin replied, "Automatic mode should close most of the gap." I printed the exchange. Thomas read it slowly. So they charged people instead of admitting the budget was short. Yes. And because I had no car, I could not identify a driver. That made you easier to blame. The injustice went beyond one account. The HOA had transferred financial pressure onto residents through a system they could not meaningfully challenge. People with time, lawyers, or technical knowledge might escape. Older residents paid. Busy parents paid. Immigrants afraid of legal letters paid. Anyone who feared a lien paid. The system was called automated enforcement. In reality, it was automated billing backed by the threat of property loss. When the HOA sent Thomas a payment plan, the trap became obvious. He had to admit responsibility for all 17 vehicles. He had to waive future appeals. One missed payment would allow immediate lien action. Brenda was not offering relief. She was asking him to sign away the truth. Thomas wanted to sign. Not because he believed the charges were valid, because he was scared. "This house is all I have left of Anne," he said. The payment plan required $3,000 up front. He had enough in savings. I pushed the document back across the table. "If you sign, you admit those cars were yours. They know they were not. They do not care. I cannot risk the house." "You are risking it by accepting a false debt." His voice rose. "I am 68 years old, Megan. I do not have years for court." The room went quiet. That was the cruelty of the system. It used time as a weapon. Institutions could delay. Vendors could generate forms. Lawyers could add fees. An older homeowner measured the fight against his remaining years. I called attorney Laura Chen. She filed an emergency request to stop the lien. She demanded all source logs, camera records, appeal data, contracts, and board emails. The court issued temporary protection. The HOA could not record the lien while the evidence was reviewed. Brenda responded by scheduling a special board meeting titled Parking Accountability and Resident Misconduct. She planned to frame Thomas as someone refusing responsibility. Laura smiled when she saw the notice. "They are giving us a microphone." Thomas was less certain. "I spent my life teaching students not to humiliate people in public. They are counting on your dignity to keep you quiet." He looked at Anne's photograph, then at the 17 tickets. "I'll go." The clubhouse filled before the meeting began. Brenda sat behind the board table. Kevin sat beside her. The lien notice lay in front of them like a threat. My grandfather carried only one page. Proof that he had not held a driver's license in 6 years. Brenda opened with a speech about congestion, safety, and equal enforcement. She said Thomas had accumulated 17 violations and repeatedly failed to identify his guests. She described the automated system as neutral. "Technology does not discriminate," she said. Thomas stood. He placed the license surrender record on the table. "How did I park 17 cars when I do not have a driver's license?" Some residents laughed. Brenda struck the gavel. "This is not humorous." "You are right," Thomas said. "You threatened my home with it." The room went silent. Brenda claimed homeowners were responsible for vehicles associated with their property. Thomas asked what associated meant. Kevin answered that the vehicles were recorded within the geofenced zone. I projected Harold's footage. The first vehicle was across the street. The second belonged to the landscaper. The third sat in Brenda's driveway. Murmurs spread through the room. Brenda said camera angles could be misleading. Then I displayed the registration for Ashley's SUV. Her daughter's name appeared beside the plate. That temporary stop became a $740 charge on my grandfather's account. Brenda's face tightened. "My daughter's parking is irrelevant. It is one of the 17 charges." A resident shouted, "Did Ashley get fined?" Brenda refused to answer. Officer Ruiz stepped forward. She had verified every plate. "All 17 vehicles belonged to other people," she said. Kevin whispered to Brenda. She tried to adjourn. Laura stood. "The court order requires preservation and review of these records." The live stream continued. For the first time, Brenda could not control the narrative. Officer Ruiz presented the list one vehicle at a time. A grocery delivery van. An HOA landscaping truck. A cable repair vehicle. A home health nurse's sedan. A pool contractor. A guest visiting another resident. Ashley Collins's SUV. 3 vehicles working on the clubhouse renovation. Not one belonged to Thomas. One landscaping truck generated 4 separate tickets. All 4 were assigned to his property. Another vehicle had been photographed while the driver was delivering medical supplies to a house 2 doors away. Brenda kept repeating the phrase, associated with the location. Officer Ruiz answered, "Location does not prove ownership." Kevin argued that residents could avoid problems by registering their guests. Thomas looked at him. "How do I register people visiting other homes?" Kevin had no answer. Then I displayed the hospital record. One ticket claimed a black sedan was connected to Thomas at 2:14 p.m. At that exact time, he was undergoing retinal imaging 10 miles away. Brenda said the homeowner did not need to be present for guest responsibility. "It was not his guest," I said. A woman stood from the audience. "That was my sister's car." Another resident identified the cable van. A third recognized the nurse's sedan. The room began identifying the real owners faster than Kevin could object. The system had not merely made occasional errors. It had reassigned community traffic to whichever account was geographically convenient. Thomas became the perfect target because he had no vehicle records to compare, no family living with him, no registered guest list, a paid-off house, a homeowner unlikely to fight publicly. The injustice was now visible on a single screen. 17 cars, 14 owners, 1 innocent man. I projected a diagram of the Park Secure process. Camera scan, plate capture, GPS estimate, nearest address, automatic ticket, no ownership check, no human review. Laura then showed the metadata. The tickets were created within 8 seconds. The appeals were denied automatically. One denial occurred 42 seconds after Thomas uploaded 9 pages of evidence. No person could have read them. Brenda called the process efficient. Laura opened the Park Secure warning email. Proximity assignment should not be treated as proof of ownership or resident responsibility. Human review is recommended. She displayed Kevin's reply. Proceed with automated attribution. Residents can dispute if necessary. Laura faced him. You knew the system could not prove ownership. Kevin said the board wanted consistent enforcement. You used software guesses to create legal debt. The notices were appealable. By another automated system. Kevin shifted in his chair. Then Laura showed his internal message. Manual review lowers yield and slows collections. The word yield changed the room. Parking safety had become a financial product. Residents were not being protected. They were being processed. Thomas looked at Kevin. When I taught history, I warned students about systems where no person takes responsibility because every person says they only followed procedure. Kevin looked away. That is what you built here. A resident asked how many tickets had been issued. Laura displayed the total. More than 800 in 18 months. Over 60% had never received human review. Brenda tried to argue that most residents paid. That proves fear, I said, not accuracy. The automated system had one advantage over its victims. It never became tired. It never felt shame. It never worried about losing a home. People did. That was how the scheme made money. Laura displayed the contract on the screen. Park Secure earned money for every citation. Kevin's company received a percentage of collections. The HOA earned monthly enforcement credits. The legal vendor received referral fees. Each unpaid ticket became more valuable as it moved toward a lien. Brenda's election email appeared next. Strong parking enforcement lets us avoid raising dues before the election. Residents began shouting. She struck the gavel. This meeting is out of order. No, Thomas said. The accounts are out of order. Laura revealed that hundreds of tickets had been issued to residents who did not own cars, people traveling abroad, vacant homes, emergency service vehicles, HOA contractors, home care workers, delivery drivers. One empty property had received 6 tickets. The owner had paid because he feared losing the house during a sale. Another resident paid a fine for an ambulance. A widow paid for a contractor repairing the HOA pool. This was not parking enforcement, I said. It was automated billing with houses attached. Kevin admitted no employee reviewed citations before issuance. Brenda blamed the vendor. The vendor warning proved management had been told. Then a board member asked the question that ended her defense. Did you know Thomas Reed did not own a car? Brenda hesitated. Kevin had sent her the registration records months earlier. The email appeared on screen. Her response read, "Vehicle ownership is irrelevant. The property account can still be charged." The room exploded. That sentence removed any possibility of innocent error. Brenda did not care who owned the cars. She cared which house could be billed. Thomas's property was not a home to the system. It was collateral. The board voted to freeze every parking ticket issued through ParkSecure. Thomas's lien was cancelled immediately. Kevin's management contract was terminated. Brenda was removed as HOA president by emergency vote. An independent audit was approved. Residents demanded refunds. The Consumer Protection Office received the contract, emails, and ticket database. ParkSecure suspended automatic citation services pending investigation. Kevin attempted to leave before the vote ended. Laura reminded him that preservation orders covered his phone and work files. Brenda sat motionless while the screen showed 17 vehicle photographs beside 14 real owners. Her daughter's SUV remained at the center. Ashley was later required to pay the valid parking charge attached to her own vehicle. The irony did not feel satisfying. The larger damage was too serious. Hundreds of residents had paid false or unverified fines. Some had borrowed money. Some had skipped medical expenses. One elderly couple had paid legal fees to stop a lien over a home care nurse's car. The HOA agreed to cover Thomas's legal costs and return every payment he had made. His account balance was reset to zero. The title company confirmed no lien had been recorded. When Thomas received the written release, he held the page for a long time. "They almost took Anne's house over cars I never touched." I corrected him gently. "They almost took it because they believed nobody would check." That was the real lesson. Abuse often survives not because the evidence is strong, but because the target is isolated. Once residents compared notices, the system collapsed quickly. Brenda's authority had depended on everyone fighting alone. The moment the community saw the same pattern, her official language stopped sounding like policy. It sounded like what it was: a revenue scheme built on fear. The HOA adopted new rules. No citation could be based on proximity alone. Every ticket required human review. The plate had to be connected to the actual owner or verified guest. Appeals went to an independent panel. No parking fine could lead to a lien without a full hearing. Revenue-sharing contracts were banned. Camera systems could support safety, but they could not automatically create debt. Residents received refunds in waves. Harold recovered the money he had paid. The widow charged for the pool contractor received a full reimbursement. The elderly couple's lien threat was withdrawn. Officer Ruiz held a workshop explaining vehicle records and evidence requests. I helped residents compare timestamps and GPS points. Thomas returned to his normal routine. He took the bus to the library. He tended Anne's garden. He sat on the porch each afternoon with a history book. One day, a delivery driver stopped near the curb. He carried a grocery bag to the house next door. Before leaving, he glanced toward Thomas. "Am I going to get you fined?" Thomas smiled. "Not anymore." A small sign stood beside the porch. No car. No driver. No false fines. Brenda believed technology was neutral because it hid the people making choices behind it. Kevin believed older residents would pay to avoid confrontation. They believed an official notice could turn a guess into truth. They were wrong. They lost to 17 license plates, doorbell cameras, GPS records, registration files, one honest police officer, and an elderly teacher who asked the simplest question in the room: "How could I park 17 cars when I don't even own one?" The answer was that he could not. The system never needed him to. It only needed his house to be worth more than his ability to fight back.